Hello, and welcome to Gondor Calls for Ale, episode 81. I am your host, Sam Gallagher, and returned from the woods is my brother, Ben.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Thanks for having me, Sam, and thanks for filling me in. A highly enjoyable episode. I, once again, thoroughly enjoyed listening to your long rambling Sam episodes. They are always enjoyable.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I'm glad to have you back. Maybe I will talk slightly less this time. That's always in doubt, though. But Ben, before we get into whether I'll talk a lot or not, we have to get into something else, which is, of course, the ale. So I've got to ask you, what are you drinking for this fine, perhaps extra special episode?
Oh, this indeed is an extra special episode, Sam, and I, of course, have myself an extra special beer, for I have myself the Ale of Gondor 2.0. It's all the Gondor you knew and loved from before, but now with Fight 4. Delicious.
Very good, very good.
What about you, Sam? What are you drinking for this episode?
Well, Ben, I'm having a Galadriel, a lustrous golden ale that has something that reveals your inner thoughts. I was going to change the tagline and then forgot to do that and then messed it up, so...
Oh, well, it's good. A Galadriel, Galadriel, highly entertaining.
Yep, there we go. Okay, Ben, so you're back from the woods. Did you find out that what midges eat when they don't eat hobbits?
Yeah, they eat Ben when they don't get hobbit.
That checks out. Good. Glad it wasn't all sunshine and roses for you there. Leaving me in the lurch to record by myself, all alone. Totally not my fault this time.
Well, it all worked out because we were struggling for something for you to record, and then lo and behold, Games Workshop came through with a preview. So fantastic, good stuff. Not to mention, we got some great questions from the community. I mean, more than half of that episode was you answering questions from people, which was highly entertaining. I think we bring that back, even when I'm still here. So I want to join in.
I definitely do too. I think it would be fun to do another question episode, maybe with a little more lead time to try and entice people in to ask more questions. And get to hear your probably wrong answers to them, because clearly joking, obviously. I think that would be very fun to do. So what I was going to say before I got very sidetracked about your walk is your pleasant stroll, perhaps, was tell the listener, remind us all what are we talking about in this episode, Ben?
Well, Sam, we are going to be going back to our bread and butter, our meat and potatoes, if you will. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about some battle reports. We're going to be covering my attendance to the Defense in the North 3, the third Defense in the North, which was a 750-point event up here in Portland, Maine. Another great showing. We got some... it was a great event. We'll talk all about it. But we're going to be covering 5 whole games from me here, Sam, today. So a lot to get through.
5
whole games.
Very good. Well, Ben, I must say 2 things in response to this as I find what I need next. Is firstly... I know what the fuck you guys are doing up in the north, but it needs a lot of defending, so maybe some amount of changing needs to go. And then the other thing, which is, of course, you're talking about our bread and butter and meat and potatoes, is a thing to consider with that is that it could be fresh bread and butter, because I think that's one of the things that old Tom Bombadil enjoys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Anyway, if I could remember it all, I'd give you a bit more Tom Bombadil. So Ben, I think before we dive on into round 1, or perhaps your army list, maybe you have that on the slide. I don't remember seeing it, so we'll see if I'm wrong. Nailed it. Nice. But before we make you tell us, because you can't describe it to us, your army list, I'm going to say today, given that we are covering 5 of Ben's games, we've got an exciting other episode planned, so rather than try and break this up, or we've got some exciting episodes in the works, so rather than breaking this up into 2, we're just going to go through it all, is that we are not going to do a build me an army or a heroic highlights, hobby, whatever it is we call it, so we're not going to show off any army lists that people have submitted or any hobbying pictures that they've submitted. You have another chance to send us in some pictures or army lists for us to talk about on the podcast, and the best way, of course, to do that is via our Discord channel server. That's the one. Damn, if I had messed that up, I was about to say, and look at that. This has all been an elaborate plug. So this is a plug for our Discord server. You can find an invitation link in the comments or the description of wherever you are listening to or watching this episode. Jump on in. It's a good group of people. It's a good time. It's been slightly quiet because I have put a faux pas on discussing leaks, but that will soon be lifted, and I'm sure Discord will be booming once more. So jump into that, and you can also, before we record any episodes, we generally put out a call to see if there's anything you would like us to show off on the podcast. So there we go. Moving on. Tell us, Ben. Paint me a picture with your worms. What army were you bringing? What was in it? All that stuff.
Well, Sam, as you may have gathered from my thematic, as ever, beer, I was playing the army of Gondor. Mm-hmm. In my army, there was the Pale Orc himself, Azog, with heavy armor and the Stone Flail. In his warband, he has got 18 orcs. There are 9 of them with shield. There are 8 of them with spears, and there is 1 with shield and banner. Next, it wouldn't be a father-son outing without a son and a father. So we've got Azog and Bolg in warband 2. Bolg on his Felwarg. In his warband, there are 12 Gundabad orcs and 2 berserkers. There are 6 with spear and 6 with shields. And there we have it for a total of 32 models. Azog and Bolg, 6 might, and ready to rock and roll. About as subtle as a hammer, this army list. It's super fun to play. It is low on might, I will say that. But super duper fun. I had a great time playing it.
Very good. Well, I look forward to hearing how it does. And yeah, I think we can probably just get right on into that, Ben. Unless there's anything of note worth talking about the Defense of the North. You said it was 750 points. It was 5 games, so I assume you're using all but one of the scenarios out of the current Middle-earth rulebook. Anything else worth?
No, I set up the tables, so I have only myself to blame for all the choke points and fiddly terrain. I said to the guys I was setting up, Henry, the event organizer, TO, and my friend Ian also helped set up the boards, and I said to them, I want to be complaining about choke points on game 1. And I was absolutely complaining about choke points on game 1. It was fantastic. A breath of fresh air after the wide open fields of Adept. So anyway, enjoy the terrain. I certainly did. So onward, Sam, into round 1. Where I was playing... Come on. We were playing Hold Ground. Do you want to give us a run-through of the old Hold Ground scenario?
I surely do. Hold Ground. You can see, if you're watching, a beautifully placed deployment map. Ben has got it right this time. It is, of course, a map without deployment zones because this is a Maelstrom mission. We have a single objective in the center of the board. And we have a game that lasts until one force has been broken, and then it may suddenly end on a 1 or a 2. Ben, we have some scoring victory points. You score 4 victory points if your opponent has more models within 6 inches of the objective. Sorry, if you have more models than your opponent has within 6 inches of the objective. If you have twice as many models within 6 of the objective than your opponent, instead you score 8. If you have 3 times as many models within 6 inches of the center objective, or you're the only player to have models within 6, you instead score 12. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general was wounded during the game. If the enemy general was removed as a casualty, instead you score 3. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 3. You score 2 victory points if your opponent has no banners remaining at the end of the game.
All right, so we will dive right onto it. I was playing against Dave, and he was bringing atop the wall. He had Gandalf, Irolas, a captain, and of course Peregrine Took and Shadowfax. And this is our awesome table that we were playing on. I was actually looking at the deployment map while you were talking about it, and I realized that this board is very, very similar to the deployment map, including a piece of terrain in the middle of the board, which we were obviously fighting over. As where the objective was the King of Men riding his horse on that terrain feature in the middle of his Gilead there. So we will get right on into it. Dave won the first priority roll-off and elected to give me the first turn. So I rolled on with Azog, the Pale Orc himself, who rolled a whopping 6 and came on right in the middle of this board edge closest to the camera here. We're going to call that the southern board edge. Azog comes in, and Bolg rolls a 1 and does not arrive this turn.
Surely, Ben, you should have claimed that as the northern board edge because he is the like general of the north.
Oh
Just
yeah,
saying.
maybe I should have. North south doesn't really make a difference in Maelstrom, but
No,
maybe
it's
I
the
should have
same.
because clearly Bottle was confused, as we
Yeah,
will get
right.
into in this game. So Dave rolls up, Gandalf rolls a 1, Irolas and the captain both roll a 5 and a 6 respectively, and move on to the table. I should note, Sam, that on turn 1, I got a 6-up save from the trusty Banner of Angmar, I think is the one that gives me a 6-up save. Turn 2, I waved the banner of Dol Guldur and got a free battlefield-wide march. Or maybe that one's the banner of... Yeah, the banner of Dol Guldur is a free battlefield-wide march, which was great. Azog called a free march this turn. I won the priority roll-off and gave priority to Dave. Irolas and the captain both push forwards, and Gandalf arrives on a 5 and makes himself terrifying as he rides onto the table with a free point of will. Bolg, after Azog heroically marches into the center, rushing towards the center of the board, Bolg rolls another 1, Sam, and does not arrive this turn. Dave wins the next priority roll-off, gives me first turn. We can't have a free battlefield-wide banner this turn because, of course, we only get that every other turn. So once again, we're going to have a 6-up save on our troops this turn. Azog, once again, rushing towards the middle of the table. I think this is about when this picture was taken. Azog's warband has now almost gained the center of the board, which is good because Bolg once again rolls a 1, doesn't arrive. That's 3 turns in a row with a 1 for Bolg. And Gandalf, on his turn, the warriors of Minas Tirith are pushing up, pushing ground. I might have been tempted to call a march with the captain in this position, but he didn't know that Bolg wasn't going to arrive for yet a 3rd turn in a row. So, what are you going to do? Gandalf spends a point of will to Sorcerer's Blast. I'm not sure who he was Sorcerer's Blasting. I don't recall. It doesn't matter, though, because he failed to cast it. I took priority for turn 5 and elected to take priority because I wanted to move onto the center of the board. I wanted to claim I've got Azog and 18 orcs on the table, literally almost half my army. I think Bolg's warband adds up to like 735 points. 335 points. It's really close to half my army. It's not on the board. And I'm outnumbered on the table by like almost 2 to 1, over 2 to 1, getting close to 3 to 1. Anyway, so I want to get Azog and his troops onto that terrain feature to at least try and like hold that piece, because a couple of Fight 4 orcs in the right place can really stuff things up for the warriors of Minas Tirith. So Dave pushes his warriors forwards. We get in. We're going to get combat next turn. I've left myself some channels, some places for Azog to go. And once again, Gandalf fails to Sorcerer's Blast. And Bolg rolls another 1 and does not arrive on the table for 4 turns in a row. At this point, I was almost just rooting for him to not show up because it was kind of amazing, my just ability to roll 1s and 1s and 1s and not have Bolg on the table. I was enjoying, it's a bad situation, right? You got to make the most of it. So I was talking up where I was going to bring him on the board. I was like, he's just biding his time. He's going to roll a 5. He's going to come right in on this western board edge, or I was talking up all the places where I wanted Bolg to show up. So I was trying to at least scare Dave a bit with where's Gandalf going to be, where's he going to put the wizard.
I'm going to quickly interject here, Ben,
Sure.
because I think now is the perfect time to say, clearly, you need to visit the official sponsor of Gondor Calls for Ale, the Baron of Dice, to get yourself some premium wargaming dice that are guaranteed to not roll 1s 4 times in a row, at least some of the time. Ben, you can have a lovely discount on your order of Lord of the Rings specific dice by using the promo code G, C, A, and the affiliation link in the description of wherever you're listening or viewing this podcast.
It's funny you should bring that up, Sam, because I actually swap dice next turn for Bolg. Anyway, all right, so we get into the next turn. I take priority again, elect to keep priority, want to keep pushing forwards, want to apply some pressure, want to move past this center objective and really just, it is mine. I'm really going to make Dave work to push me off of it. His captain calls a move. He is, fortunately for him, outside of range of Azog's Master of Battle, so no Master of Battle for Azog there. I've only got 3 might on the board. I want to save it, so I let Dave go first. His captain pushes up. His warriors of Minas Tirith come charging on in. Gandalf moves onto the center of the table there. The knights crash in. But fortunately, I'd left myself some sneaky channels and left Azog in a spot where he couldn't be charged. So you can see where Gandalf is here. Gandalf has come riding up the steps. There's really, if he wants to get into combat, there's nowhere else for him to be. He can't he can't be anywhere else. And he's about 5 3/4 inches away from Azog. So I did the old spear wall shuffle. I shuffled all my spear supports around and managed to charge Azog into Gandalf on this turn, which is very sneaky, very saucy. I don't think Dave saw it coming. In fact, I know he didn't. He was like, "Oh no, Gandalf doesn't like that at all." And then
the previous edition, Ben, stairs would be Gandalf's nemesis.
It's true. It's true. He wouldn't have made it up those stairs. We all know, Sam, there were no shots, absolutely zero shots in the movie where Shadowfax rides upstairs. It didn't happen.
Fact.
All right. So Azog has moved. We've done our spear wall shuffle, and I put aside my Games Workshop Eye of Sauron dice that I'd been rolling, and I got out my trusty Baron of Dice dice. And not only were they my trusty Baron of Dice dice, they were my Gondor Calls for Ale exclusive Patreon dice. I'm obviously not a Patreon, but I snuck myself some set. Got a set anyway. Anyway, roll those dice. Bolg rolls a 5 and decides to come on the northern board edge, right behind the wall of Warriors of Minas Tirith. We've now got a sandwich. Actually, and at this point in the game, like having had him away for that long, it was the perfect place and time. Like almost last turn would have been worse for him to arrive because at that point the battle lines weren't committed yet. But now that they're committed and then he arrives, it was like, okay, here we go. I can really apply some dangerous pressure here. So we've got Bolg on the table. He's coming behind Gandalf, and we get some fights this turn. We obviously get the strike off between Gandalf and Azog. Azog doesn't get a free no Master of Battle strike for Azog. That's unfortunate, but that's okay. Azog rolls a 1 on his strike. Gandalf gets a 2, but Gandalf biffs his combat roll. Azog wins the fight and puts through 3 wounds on Gandalf, who has to spend 3 points of fate to survive that fight.
Did he pass all of the fate, or did he?
Yeah, passed all of the fate. I believe he had to re-roll 2 of them, but whatever. He was fine. He was unscathed. No wounds got through. I should mention too that the captain calls a heroic combat this turn. The captain of Minas Tirith, which is Burns' last point of might, but he's out on the flank here with these knights, and he's just sort of wrapping up the orcs that I was not able to get onto that center terrain piece. The orcs that were spread out so that Azog didn't get pinned when I inevitably lost the move off that was coming. What a turn. What a turn. I lost 2 casualties, but only killed 1, but was very pleased to have punched Gandalf in the face with Azog. So we get into the next turn where Dave takes priority and elects to keep priority. I didn't call a move. Like I said, I am low on might here. And Gandalf calls a free heroic channel. So you can see in the background from here, Bolg. Bolg is off in the background. His warbands arrived. Half of it is coming up one side of this building of Minas Tirith, this mansion of Gondor, and Bolg and a couple of his other guys are coming around the other flank there because we don't want to get completely bottlenecked. So Gandalf
heroic channel wasn't. You said free heroic channel. That can't be possible.
I'm sorry, not a free heroic channel. Gandalf heroic channel.
Okay.
He calls a channel this turn. So Gandalf is on 1 might. Calls a channel and sorceress blasts Bolg in an attempt to bring him down. So I'm on the back foot here. Obviously, half my armies arrived late. Like I said, better late than never. And when they arrived, they were in the right spot. But I decided to just go for it. I spent all 3 of Bolg's will because he was exactly where I wanted him to be, and I really, really didn't want to lose that warg. So Bolg spends 3 points of his will, gets a 5 high, and has to spend a point of might to resist that blast. So burning through 3 will and a might it stung. But Bolg is still on his warg, and then Gandalf finishes his move. Right there, some Citadel Guard come back to sort of block Gandalf free from Bolg, but that's fine. Bolg doesn't care about that. He's fight 7. He's mean. He's coming for the game. He's coming for the wizard anyway, Sam. In the combat phase...
Oh, I see. Gandalf rode off from the middle. Gotcha.
Yeah. And sort of on the other flank there, so there's Bolg on one flank on one side of this house of Minas Tirith. And on the other flank, 4 warriors of Minas Tirith come running down to bottleneck Bolg's shield wall, Bolg's warband off from getting to the center of the board. And I said, Sam, I wanted to be complaining about bottlenecks. Well, I was complaining about bottlenecks. Those 2 warriors of Minas Tirith managed to stonewall 10 orcs for entirely too long. But, great game. You got to love the terrain. In the combat phase, Bolg calls a heroic combat, and Gandalf has to call a strike because... Bolg gonna kill those 2 men of Minas Tirith and go right on into the wizard. So Bolg's heroic combat goes off. Bolg kills those 2 guys and then comes riding round into the knight with a banner. You can just see that knight with the banner in the front of that picture here. Bolg kills that knight, which is quite tasty. We now have 1 banner each on the table. Dave's army had 2. Now he's down to 1, and the other banner is nowhere near Gandalf. And Gandalf is now split off from his force. He's going to have to ride a long way away to get away from Bolg, which is what we like to see. Elsewhere in the battle line, Sam, things get messy. I get a whopping 8 kills this turn and only take 2 casualties. So Bolg has arrived, Azog's getting stuck in, and things are definitely going my way. I should say, too, that this turn I have a battlefield-wide banner, which is so, so nice. Unfortunately, I did lose both the fights. I had 2 Berserkers and 2 Orcs and a bunch of Spear Supports over on that flank. Bolg's Warband. I lost both their fights to the 2 Warriors of Minas Tirith, and they were shunted backwards. All right, which brings us on into turn 7. I take priority, keep priority, and we get a move off between Azog and Irolas. The move goes to me, and the battle lines re-engage. Unfortunately, I'm not able to pin Gandalf. Gandalf is able to escape, but that is okay. No, tell a lie, Gandalf strikes this turn. I do manage to get Bolg into Gandalf this turn, that's right. We get Bolg into Gandalf, battle lines re-lock in the middle. We get the strike off between Bolg and Gandalf. Bolg wins the fight and unfortunately only gets 1 wound through on Gandalf and pulls another point of fate off of him. But another exciting turn. I only kill 1 and take 2 casualties this turn, so not as good this turn. Azog is not doing quite what he needs to do in the middle of the board there.
So Gandalf's now
completely out of fate. He's used 4 fate already this game. Completely out of fate. Completely out of might. And Bolg is Bolg is also out of might at this point as well.
Yeah, I was thinking when you got Azog into him the first, is it worth putting like a hit into Pippin, a hit into
Yeah, spreading the damage around a bit because that's true actually, because Azog's got the Stone Flail. So if I'd done 1 hit to Pippin.
Shit, I hadn't even thought that.
Yeah, and then 1 hit to Shadowfax only got 1 wound.
Pippin's only got 1 wound.
Yeah, that's true.
He can't use the ring. He can't use the ring to re-roll them. If he fails, though, it's like, do I use it? It just becomes a bit more of a choice.
I haven't really thought about that. And Azog, they're all heroes. Azog wounds them all on 3s anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends where he's used. Because I assume the first might you use probably is Pippin's. So it's not like getting rid of Pippin gets rid of the extra might. But anyway, just a thought. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, I'm making this first battle take a long time. So
yeah, and you see the Warriors of Minas Tirith stonewalling my warband there, doing a bang up job. So Dave takes the next 2 turns of priority. Gandalf essentially rides away. I can't catch him. He drops Pippin off to stonewall Bolg, which is hilarious. Bolg gets to eat Pippin for breakfast. Delicious. Gandalf abandons Pippin, rides away, throws a bunch more Sorcerous Blast and Transfix, and fails to get a single spell off for the rest of the game. Azog is mopping things up in the middle of the board. Irolas is calling a desperate defense, and basically this game ends on time. I think this is about where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And I lose this one 4-3, so Dave is broken and I am not broken. He has 15 models in the middle of the table, and I have 12, including Azog's dominant, Gandalf's dominant, all of that added in. Bolg is 9 inches away from the center of the board. Both of his Berserkers are 9 inches away from the center of the board, and his entire warband is 12 inches away from the center. So 1 more turn, and it was going to landslide my way. As it was a fantastic game. I will say feedback to Henry the TO and anyone TOs listening in general. I don't think 2 hours was enough for 700 points.
Would you like to hear my prediction, Ben?
What's that? That Ben times out in all of his games?
Well, no. This was that in the new match play guide, they will specify that it should be at least 2.5 hours after, or 2 hours and 15 minutes after you hit 650 points.
Nice. That seems reasonable. I think I could have done with at least 30 minutes in most of my games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will also say you do time out in most of your games, so
yep.
There is that. I think you probably talk too much to people during, which either then slows them down, and I think you perhaps actually make decisions versus being like, fuck it, first choice, right choice, and just going in.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right. Early draws, especially early on in a tournament when I'm like meeting everyone and haven't seen my friends in a while. Which is fantastic, Sam, because it brings me into my next game, game 2. I was playing against Ian. Ian's a good friend of mine. I don't see him as much as I would like. We spent too much time speaking in this game. We managed to play 6 whole turns of To the Death, which is a game that should be over much faster than that.
That's
So,
basically
Sam.
what I can take a guess at what he's playing.
Yeah. To the Death. Men of the West. We've got the three hunters, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli.
Jeez.
Jeez.
What a fun list.
Jeez.
To the Death, Ben. Here we have a 12-inch up deployment zone. We have a game that lasts until the end of a turn, in which one army has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. We've got some victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general was wounded during the game. If the enemy general has been wounded and only has 1 wound remaining, instead you score 3. If the enemy general has been removed as a casualty, instead you score 5. You score 3 victory points if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 5. You score 2 victory points if your opponent has no banners remaining at the end of the game. If you score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 banner remaining at the end of the game. If you have more banners than your opponent, instead you score 2. You score 3 victory points if the enemy army has been reduced to 25% of its starting number, and you score 1 victory point for each enemy hero that you have removed as a casualty to a maximum of 3.
Nice. So I set up that first table that I played on. Enjoyed playing on it. Sam, also set up this table. Goblin Town comes to Armenhen. I'm particularly pleased with this. This is Tyler's board. Tyler's one of our Patreons. He brought 2 boards to this. He had an 8-hour drive, 7-hour drive, something ridiculous, all the way from New York. Upstate, came in with 2 boards, which is awesome. This board is awesome, and I had a lot of fun setting it up. Goblin Town comes to Armenhen. They're not Goblin Town walkways, but it was fun to set up.
Sure.
So we get right on into it. Men of the West, Army of Gondor. I win the roll-off and give Ian priority on turn 1, and we're getting free marches from the banner of Dol Guldur this turn. And Aragorn also calls a free heroic march. I should say that both Azog and Bolg call a march, and we go rushing up the board. I should say that
Dol Guldur, Ben. It's the banner of Gondor.
Banner of Gondor that gives us the free march. Dol Guldur is the battlefield-wide banner, then?
Correct.
Got it. All right. So we are waving the banner of Gondor for a free heroic march this turn. Aragorn, of course, being a mighty hero, gets his free heroic march. And Ian's obviously on the side with my cool terrain feature that I've set up. And he elects to sort of to claim the terrain feature, which I think was actually a bit of a trap. It looks like this awesome defensive position, but I have no reason to play into the defensive position. So it kind of gave me this opportunity to not get really shot at, particularly, which was kind of fun. So no shooting casualties on turn 1 because Legolas is rushing up to the top of that terrain feature. And in turn 2, Ian takes priority and elects to keep priority because he wants to sort of maintain his hold on this terrain feature. And we do get a couple of casualties this turn because Sam Azog is not afraid of that terrain feature, and he goes charging up the hill. He brings his orcs. One of my orcs had to make a climb test to try and get in there. I was like, screw it, he's going to go. I rolled a 6 on his sneaky climb test. A 5 would have got him into combat under the new climbing rules, which is awesome anyway. But the 6 was particularly fantastic because he was able to climb around the model that Azog was fighting and negate the high ground bonus. So Azog was fighting a warrior of Rohan, defending the high ground, but now my Gondor guy climbed up, got into combat with him, which was fantastic. He was going to charge into Legolas because it would have been funny. Didn't charge into Legolas. Instead, helped Azog get up the cliff, which was awesome. So in the shooting phase, Legolas machine guns 3 shots into Azog, spends a point of might to get a wound, and Azog has to spend a point of fate to remain unwounded.
Can he do that? I don't think you can do that.
Oh, maybe he didn't machine gun 3 shots. Maybe it was the 1-up to hit. I just have that. Legolas spent a point of might to cause a wound, and
Gotcha. Yeah, I think you can shoot 3 shots into your target, or you can do the 1 auto hit into into a model that's in combat. I believe.
Got it. So Azog calls a heroic combat this turn. Obviously wins his combat. Legolas has to call a strike because Azog is coming for him. So Azog gains the hill, kills his warrior of Rohan, and then goes into another warrior of Rohan because there's no reason. I don't have to go into Legolas right now. I can say that Legolas is actually trapped. He kind of can't get off that hill now. There's a warrior behind him, and orcs all around, Azog in front of him, which is why I think it was a little bit of a trap.
Mm-hmm.
So I take next turn priority, and Aragorn calls a free heroic move. Our Master of Battle does not go off, so he gets to move first. And Sam, this is where we get, I guess this is where he could have escaped with Legolas. He could have run the warrior of Minas Tirith or the warrior of Rohan that's behind Legolas backwards. But Ian elected not to, This is, I think we've had discussions about sportsmanship and playing, like the difference between like playing to the best of your ability versus playing for fun. And Ian and I talked about this decision after the game because essentially, like, it's almost a suicide charge for Legolas to run into Aragorn at this, to Legolas to run into Azog at that point. Like, we don't. He doesn't have a spear support. We don't really. He's got an Elven Blade and Strike, but like we kind of expect the fight to go Azog's way, and this is a scenario where you get victory points for killing heroes. But anyway, Ian decides to charge Legolas into Azog on top of that walkway. Super thematic, really cool fight. He did point out that it's not a completely pointless gambit. It wasn't just a throwaway hero. Like, he wasn't just doing it to let me have fun because he was in the winning position with this like fortification and stuff. Because Legolas, like you said, Sam, can shoot into combat. So his idea here was he was just going to machine gun 3 shots into Azog to try and get some leader VPs.
Yeah, I mean, you get 3 shots. I guess Azog's got the armor, so they don't.
Yeah, defense 7.
Yeah, but still, 3 shots and then a strike at the same. He's fight 7, yeah?
6.
No, okay. So 1 less with the Elven Blade. Like, it could kill Azog.
It could kill, or even just get a wound through it. Like, it wasn't the safe move. The safe move, I think, would have been to pull back and
sure, but it's also like, if he dies, it's 1 VP.
Yeah. Anyway, so in the combat phase, we get the strike off between Azog and Legolas. And Azog wins the duel roll, but doesn't actually manage to kill Legolas. Biffs his wound roll and basically peels off all of Legolas's fate, but Legolas is still alive. Elsewhere on the board, I've thrown some orcs in. We're getting some combat. Aragorn is kind of stuck behind his battle lines. He really can't get into the fray, which is awesome. He's in the middle of this terrain feature. And we send Bolg around the side. So Ian takes next turn. I take next turn. Bolg goes in round the side, and what I should have done with Bolg is call a heroic combat and run away. That's what I was intending to do. I left myself an alleyway to do it. I thought about it really hard. I was like, hit and run. It's only 2 models, but you're in a good position. You can hit. Bolg can run away and not be seen. And then I got greedy, Sam. I got greedy. I killed 2 guys with Bolg. I charged in further. I killed 2 more guys. And then Ian took next turn priority, won the priority. We got a move off between Aragorn and Bolg. Aragorn won the move off and charged into Bolg, which is exactly what I knew was going to happen. You shouldn't risk your battle roll your battle plan on a 50-50 move off. I should have followed through on my battle plan. Didn't follow through on my battle plan. So this turn, Aragorn kills Bolg, gets him trapped. Gimli was up on top of Arm and Hen. Gimli leaps off of Arm and Hen, lands on his ass, gets surrounded. Actually, I didn't charge him. I was going to charge him with orcs, and I was like, no, he's just lying on the ground. If I somehow win against Aragorn with Bolg, I've got Gimli on the ground, which is awesome. But Gimli basically wasn't doing anything in the game, so he elected to fall. He was unscathed from the 3 or 4 strength 3 hits that he took. It was hilarious. And Aragorn kills Bolg, Azog kills Legolas, and we are both 1-1 for victory points in this game. And at this point, I ran my banner away, Sam. I'm not ashamed to admit that I ran my banner away. He was worth victory points. He went to run and go hide from Aragorn. Back around the side of the building, he'd seen Bolg get cut down. Didn't want any part of that. So Aragorn turns around. Azog comes down off his hill, wants to try and club some guys. And we basically just, over the next couple of turns, Aragorn and Azog both hack through a bunch of guys. No one gets broken. At the end of the game, they're both next to each other, not fighting. Aragorn calls a free heroic combat. Azog, master of battles, the heroic combat. Azog goes first. Azog kills his guys and then runs up the terrain feature to go hide from Aragorn, because Aragorn's on a horse and is big and scary now. And this game ends on a 1-1 tie. A very fun game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Playing around that terrain feature was very entertaining. But hey, what you going to do?
So I see you timed out.
Yeah, we timed out. Like I said, we played 6 turns. We were both just chatting. Should
have sent Azog into Aragorn, Ben.
On the last turn,
win or lose.
He was going to charge me. What was going to happen? It was going to be Aragorn had charged, so it was going to be the cavalry charge into my not mounted hero.
Sure.
Elven Blade, tied 5.
You're only strength 5, right?
Yeah.
I forgot that he'd get the cavalry charge either way. Yeah. Could have won it.
That was why. I didn't want to eat the horse. Didn't want to eat the horse charge.
Sure. Still,
yeah, there it is. There it is. Azog hiding from Aragon. It was a pretty tricky situation. I honestly think there were enough overlapping combat zones that even if Aragon's combat, and I had priority this turn, so even if Aragon's combat had gone first,
it doesn't look like he could fit a base in there.
Yeah, he was going to have to dismount. Maybe I can't remember.
I guess you had that on the bed. I guess you could make space to get into him, but yeah. Fair enough. Well, 1-1 draw. So a loss and a draw.
Yep, loss and a draw. And there it is. Aragon coming up to chase down Azog for a cool picture at the end of the game.
Sure. Shame that Azog's not painted.
I know. I was going to paint him, and then I was like, oh, he doesn't have the stone flail. And I asked Avery if I could borrow his Azog, and then he forgot to bring him for me. So I should have painted my Azog. And then Avery would have remembered to bring him, and I wouldn't have needed him. But
I'm pretty sure the last time I was at a Defense in the North, Avery was borrowing a Caliborn from somebody, and they remembered to bring that Caliborn, and then he rudely killed a lot of my models. So I hope the next time somebody forgets your model, Avery. I joke. All right, round 3, last round for of the day.
Yeah, last round of the day. We are playing Fog of War, Sam, and I was playing against your buddy Ethan, who is now my buddy too. Thoroughly enjoyed this game against Ethan. He was playing the Return of the King with Aragorn, Legolas, the King of the Dead, and a Herald of the Dead, and some number of dead guys.
He was busy working away on some awesome looking Iron Hill dwarves, because I think initially the points for Defense of the North changed at some point in time, and he was like, I'm not going to be able to get enough done at this point in time. So we have 12-inch up deployment zones. We have a game that lasts until one force has been broken, and then it may suddenly end on a 1 or a 2. We have a whole bunch of victory conditions, Ben. We have, at the start of the game, secretly note down one of your own hero models. This may not be your general unless you only have one hero. You score 1 victory point if the nominated hero is still alive at the end of the game. If the nominated hero is still alive and has suffered no wounds, instead you score 3 victory points. If the nominated hero is still alive and suffered no wounds and spent no fate, instead you score 5. And then we have, at the start of the game, secretly note down one of your opponent's hero models. This may not be your opponent's general unless they only have 1 hero. You score 1 victory point if for causing 1 or more wounds to the nominated hero. Wounds prevented by a successful fate roll don't count if the nominated hero has been removed as a casualty. Instead, you score 3. If the nominated hero has been removed as a casualty as the result of one of your models wounding them in combat, instead you score 5. At the start of the game, secretly note down a terrain piece wholly within your opponent's half of the board. You score 1 victory point at the end of the game if you have more models than your opponent in base contact with your chosen terrain piece. If at the end of the game you have at least 2 models and twice as many as your opponent, instead you score 3. If your opponent has no models in base contact with the chosen terrain piece and you have at least 2, instead you score 5. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general was wounded during the game. If the enemy general was removed as a casualty, instead you score 2. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and your army is not, instead you score 3.
Nice.
I'll also say, Ben, you got off lightly because Ethan could have powered up. He's got a Rudy jersey from the movie Rudy, also played by Sean Astin, and a WWE belt that he likes to keep his dice in, but he left both of those articles of power at home. So,
Well, I mean, he did pretty well. Okay, he did pretty okay this game, all right? Sam did pretty okay. You'll hear about it. Hear all about it. So I obviously had the home field advantage. We're playing in Dogaldor, from God of War, and I was trying to capture the terrain feature. I didn't circle it in this image, but it's up in the top left. It's a wood with a rock in it.
Sure.
And that was my target for my terrain feature, and I was trying to kill Legolas because screw Legolas. We're gonna kill him.
Sure.
And obviously, it's somewhat unimaginative with my list. I'm obviously trying to protect Bolg.
Yeah, I mean, Legolas kills Bolg in the movies, so
it's true.
Vengeance.
All right, so Ethan wins the priority roll off for turn 1, gives me priority. I wave the banner of Gondor this turn to get 3 heroic marches. And Aragorn also calls a free heroic march this turn. And next turn, Aragorn calls a free heroic march. I get a 6-up save. Legolas takes some shots. But over the first 2 turns of the game, we just mob towards the board. And I like the army of Gondor a lot, Sam. When I don't have a battle plan, I have a big mob of orcs. And big mob of orcs is always fun. Big blob of orcs. I was just going blob of orcs as I move my guys around for the first couple of turns of this game, which is good fun. All right, so we get right into it. Right into it on turn 3. Bolg gets shot off his wog by Legolas. That's okay. He doesn't care. Because in turn 3, he rides forth, Sam. This was not the best move for Bolg. You can see he's fighting the King of the Dead here, but what happened is he got shot off his wog. He rolled a 6, landed on his feet, and instead of being going to go be on the flank, which is where I wanted him to be, he was now stuck in the middle of the board. So I said we came to play, we came to slay. So Bolg goes charging into the middle of the board. King of the Dead comes after Bolg, and we get a sweet strike off between Bolg and the King of the Dead. The King of the Dead, of course, using the Herald's Will for his strike this turn. Bolg wins the strike off and puts a wound on the King of the Dead. Doesn't kill him this turn. Takes off 3 fate and 1 wound, I should say.
Dang.
Yeah, King of the Dead was trapped. Bolg's burly. Bolg's angry. They killed his wolf, Sam. They killed his wolf.
I mean, fair enough.
Elsewhere, though, Azog is seeking vengeance on Legolas. Legolas's warband is pushing around the flank. He's been walking up slowly so he can keep taking shots. The dead guys that were with him have run around on the flank, presumably to go score an objective, which left Azog, the pale orc, free to come seek vengeance for Bolg's warg and go clobber Legolas. I could have charged Legolas with my orcs this turn. Ethan's a fairly new player. So what I did is instead surround Legolas with all my orcs, making it very clear that I was going to charge him next turn, but this turn he's got an opportunity to shoot some orcs. So, playing for fun a little bit.
I didn't realize, I just checked it because I was like, I don't think you can use the Herald's Will for strikes, and it's just heroic actions. I'm pretty sure it used to just be like moves.
Maybe it was just moves. Anyway.
Maybe it wasn't. And
I know you can't, I knew you couldn't use it for adjusting die rolls.
Right, yeah. And
you know what? I had to look up multiple times because I just couldn't believe the King of the Dead doesn't have Harbinger Evil.
Yeah. Well, he never had it.
I was so blown away by the fact that he'd lost that rule that I multiple times got out my book and was like, really? It was like checking my pockets over and over again for keys.
It's because that was the army bonus, and
sure.
So you lose it and you get, because essentially now what is it just it's basically just this arm. It's the Return of the King or the Battle of Pelennor, or the whatever, Defenders of the Pelennor are the only armies you can take the Army of the Dead in. So,
Yep. So Legolas shoots a couple of the orcs. I take I take 1 or 2 casualties in combat. So Legolas shoots 1 or 2 orcs. I take a total of 3 casualties this turn and kill 1 guy. And most importantly, Bolg has put a hurting down on the King of the Dead. I take the next turn priority and elect to give it to myself. Azog and all his buddies charge on into Legolas. We're going to clobber ourselves another Legolas this game. Over on the flanks, my orcs are fending off a couple of dead guys, trying to push them out of the terrain feature that they have claimed.
Why is there an Uruk-hai?
Because I miscounted the number of spear orcs that I own.
Okay, nice.
So I had to borrow one of Avery's Uruk-hai. Avery came through for me with the Uruk-hai.
Okay, I retract the previous Avery statement then.
Back in the center of the board, the lines re-engage. I'm actually not 100% sure. We didn't bother to look it up. Basically, we said that the dead guys were floating up and down these. The defend. We weren't bothering about me defending high ground over here on this ruin, because the dead guys just ignore terrain anyway, and I didn't feel like looking it up. So we didn't feel like rolling extra dice, and it was a good fun game.
Yeah, I think that's probably the smart thing to do if you're putting a potentially defendable hill in the middle of the game. Whoever set up these boards is to ignore that. I do think technically the Army of the Dead ignore terrain for movement. I think it specifies when them. I don't think it says. I would assume they don't ignore it for defending high ground and stuff. But
Aragorn did have to defend the high ground. Actually, we'll get into it after the fight for Bolg. So this time, once again, we get the strike off between Bolg and the King of the Dead. King of the Dead loses the fight again and is slain this turn.
Yeah.
Aragorn, I keep doing this. Azog calls a heroic combat. He's got Legolas surrounded. He's got a bunch of orcs with him. He's going to call a heroic combat. Legolas calls a strike. This was a risk. This was a gamble. I could have struck with Azog. Legolas wins the fight because he struck, which was a bit unfortunate. A bit of a gamble. Solid play by Ethan, but basically you can't even see Azog in this point. And there's Aragorn's coming for Bolg. There's all these dead guys on this hill, and I need Azog to not be 2 turns away. So I needed him to heroic combat and then come running back to the center of the board to help bail me out. Was essentially what I was gambling on. That's okay. It doesn't go my way. Ethan takes next turn. Elects to take priority. Battle lines re-lock in the middle. Aragorn comes running up the hill. Has to climb up the hill to go charge Bolg and rolls a 1. So he spends his mighty hero, Sam, to turn it into a 2 and climbs up the hill to go do battle with Bolg to claim vengeance for the King of the Dead. It was highly entertaining. We both thoroughly enjoyed it. Legolas can't get away. He's still surrounded by orcs, so he charges into Azog again. And over on the flanks, my sneaky Uruk-hai Army of Gundabad are defending the terrain feature for all they are worth. It was actually a really interesting fight on that flank because it was like 3 dead guys and 6 orcs, and it was just this like I would win but couldn't kill them, and then they would win and kill an orc, and it was actually really fun little fight to happen on the flank. In the combat phase, we get a strike-off between Bolg and Aragorn. Aragorn has to spend a point of might to do that. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's a combat. It's a combat between Aragorn calls it heroic combat because he didn't get into Bolg. He got into one of my guys, calls it combat, goes into Bolg, even though he's not struck, he's not higher than, he's just a tight fight. Aragorn wins the fight against Bolg and decapitates him this turn. So Bolg is 2 for 2, 0 for 2 against Aragorn this event. But Azog is 2 for 2 on Legolas's because he kills Legolas this turn in Vengeance. I take the next turn priority, and I should say too that we've been killing about 1 or 2 of each other's models every turn. I kill a couple of dead guys, he kills a couple of orcs. I kill a couple of dead guys, he kills a couple of orcs. And it looks like it's going to be the end of my pictures for this game, so I'm just going to run through the rest of it. Essentially what happens is Azog comes running back into the middle of the board. Aragorn's not scared of Azog, charges into Aragorn. We get an Aragorn and Azog strike off. They both go to 10. Azog gets the 6. Aragorn gets a 5, spends a point of might to take it to the 10, wins the Elven Blade roll-off, and kills Azog on the last turn of the game as well. Didn't even have him trapped, just threw down 3 wounds, and I failed my fate, and just bloop. Yeah, I know. I was like, it completely blindsided me. Fortunately for me, though, the game timed out at this point. So it was a 13-7 victory for me, because I was able to score my terrain feature. I prevented Ethan from scoring his terrain feature. I had killed my target, and he had not protected his target, which was the King of the Dead. He was trying to protect.
And he had also killed his target, surely.
But he had also killed his target, which was Bolg. Yeah, Bolg was worth so many points in this game. It was kind of scary.
Yeah. Dang.
Right.
Well, so what? Game. So you had you had a break because civilized people play 3 games a day, and hotel overly expensive for not that nice, as I remember in Portland, Maine, but.
Yeah, Double Tier was okay. Yeah, we went out to we hilariously went out. We made a reservation because Henry's on it. He's like he's like sets up a dinner and then actually makes a reservation because when you've got 16 people, you need to make a dinner reservation. We showed up to Uno's, which was almost completely empty, and they were like, "You have how many people?" And we're like, "Bro, we made a reservation." Like, why is there not a table set for us? Anyway, so that was entertaining. And then we came back and played the best companion game to Middle Earth, which is of course Captain Sonar, the submarine game. This time. My submarine was victorious. We sank the opposing submarine thrice and slept nice and cozy in our iron tube for the night.
Excellent.
Which brings us back into round 4, day 2, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I am facing off against Brandon, who has brought Lothlorien, led by Galadriel, Celeborn, and Haldir. And there were like 40 of them. There was a lot of elves in this list.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's like no elite elves, or there's no like unique elite troops. It's Pajama Elves and Galadriel Warriors.
Yeah. And of course, the Mirror of Galadriel was on the board.
And you were playing, it looks like, Reconnoiter.
Yes, sir. Reconnoiter.
A game, Ben, that has no deployment zones as well. And also a game that lasts until one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. We have some special rules for this game, which we'll go into first, which is reinforcements for each of your warbands. You roll a d6, and on a 1 to 2, it doesn't arrive, but it gets a +1 for the next time. On a 4 to 6, sorry, a 1, 2, 3, I think, anyway, whatever. A 1, 2, 3 doesn't arrive, but you get +1 next turn. 4 through 6, it does arrive, and you walk on from your board edge. You've got some victory points. You score 4 victory points if more of your models have escaped the battlefield via your opponent's board edge than vice versa. If at least 2 of your models and twice as many as your opponent, you get 8. If at least 3 and 3 times as many of your models escape, instead you get 12. You score 1 victory point for each hero that escapes the board to a maximum of 3. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general has been removed as a casualty. If it's been wounded, if it's removed as a casualty, instead you score 2. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken. If the enemy army is broken and yours is unbroken, instead you score 3. Ooh, Ben, Reconnoiter, a little bit of your white whale, I think.
Yeah, my Achilles heel. Yeah, not my strongest scenario, not by a long shot. But Sam, I set up the board, so here we have a fantastic. We're going to see another fantastic Ben board with some inventive use of those same walkways. This is another one of Tyler's board. The walkways are in it as well. You'll see where I put them, and I think again the walkways they worked for me this game as well. So I certainly had fun this game. I choose priority, and for some, no, Brandon has priority. That says Brandon, not Ben. But Brandon had priority and gave it to me this turn. I rolled a 2 and a 2 for both Azog and Bolg, and they do not arrive this turn. Galadriel and Celeborn roll a 5 and a 4 respectively and walk onto the table, and Haldir rolls a 2 and does not arrive. And Galadriel came on the board with the mirror and came into these woods, and I was honestly sort of expecting her to spend the whole game sitting in the woods with the mirror, being untouchable. It would have just been this thing that I kind of couldn't do anything about because I don't want to go fight elves in the woods. I don't know if that obviously wasn't Brandon's plan. He was pushing forwards with it, but I was really worried that it was going to spend the game in these woods. I thought it was really cool how his fall bases matched the fall trees on this. So I really enjoyed taking this picture of his nicely painted Galadriel and the mirror. And there we have the board. You can't necessarily see them, but the walkways come through that terrain feature in the center of the board. The one that's further away from my army, it's got a little archway. The walkway comes through that. So I take turn 2 priority, give it to Brandon. We push forwards. Azog rolls another 2 and does not arrive on the board. And I was worried, Sam. Bolg rolls a 4 and comes on the board. So brings us into turn 3. Azog's not on the board. Bolg is on the board. And I was a little worried that the elves were just rushing me. Haldir has arrived on the board at this point as well. So what I did, I blundered. This was a mistake. I pushed Bolg way forwards. You can see where he is. I pushed Bolg way forwards, and he's hiding behind that ruin a little bit, but not really. And I was like, I've got a big bag orc on a warg. Like, come within his threat range if you dare. And basically I was just trying to stop this, just trying to hold Brandon back a little bit while the rest of my army got a chance to catch up. And then, Azog comes on behind Bolg. And in the next turn, I take priority. Leave Bolg where he is, which was a huge, colossal mistake because I forgot that I was playing against magic users. Azog calls a free heroic march and rushes up the board to try and gain some position here. And Galadriel rolls forwards and transfixes Bolg. We got into a little bit of a rule dispute here. I'm not 100% sure how it actually. The TO ruled it, and we played with it. The question is, if a model has been transfixed, can another model compel it and make it move again?
No, surely not.
It's not 100% clear. I don't think so either. And we ruled no, that they cannot. Is the rule that the TO gave. It says may not activate to move under transfix, which I'm not. Do you activate a model when you compel it? We basically didn't go down the rabbit hole. Henry made the call. I was fine with it. Made sense to me. Brandon was fine with it. Basically, what it did mean, though, is that he couldn't pull Bolg forwards. He could transfix Bolg.
Sure.
And he did then pile a whole bunch of elves into Bolg and surround him. He transfixed him on the one turn, and then next turn did it the other way around, compelled him and transfixed him. So, but he's not able to surround Bolg. I am able to get some orcs to back him up, but basically he was looking at, I think, 4 elves with 200 weapons and spear supports. Celeborn's in the fight. Celeborn strikes up. Bolg can't strike because he's transfixed. And Sam, I prayed to the Dark Lord and won the fight. Brandon rolled 11 dice and didn't roll a 6.
Nice.
I rolled my 4 dice. I had 3 dice. I had a battlefield-wide banner. I rolled a 5 high on my 3 dice, battlefield-wide banner into the 6+. And I looked it up. Actually, the odds are it's not that unlikely of not rolling a 6 on 11 dice. It's like 15% or something. But still, I was like, I blundered and have been saved by the dice gods. I'm still in it. So Bolg is not surrounded, which brings us into the next turn. Brandon takes priority. Azog is now within range to be useful. Calls a move. Celeborn counter moves. The move off goes to Brandon, and Celeborn transfixes Azog to pin him in place before rushing forwards. Galadriel transfixes Bolg, rushing forwards to once again pile all the guys into Bolg. This time, though, I am able to peel some guys out of combat. It's not quite as many dice coming my way. And Bolg once again manages to win the fight. He's still alive. He's still in his warg. He's completely unscathed. He just hasn't done anything. He's just been sitting in the middle of the board on his stretch warg, sweating at how badly I played. which brings us round into turn 6. This is a big turn, an important turn. Brandon, I take priority, and we get a move called. I don't manage to master a battle, and elect, just because of where my heroes are, I elect not to counter move. And Galadriel attempts to transfix Azog. Azog resists the transfix, which is good. And Celeborn throws down the new spell, the vines, the writhing vine spell, which puts down an area of rough terrain. And he basically put it down so that I couldn't go around Bolg's right flank. Bolg's in basically Bolg gets piled in. He moves in such a way that Bolg is just trapped. But my orcs cannot move far enough to like peel the elves out of combat, essentially, because of this rough ground. Fortunately for me, there was this like 1 inch, and it's probably one of those things, right? If you were able to hold a template and like actually place it on the table, he'd have been able to see and seal off the gap. But there was basically a base size hole that I was able to funnel guys through. They had to like put a toe into the difficult terrain, and basically a whole bunch of my orcs, including Azog, were able to go 5 inches and come scrooching around the left-hand flank. Into the center of the board, come around Bolg. In the combat phase, Celeborn is now out of might, loses his fight to Bolg and is killed, which is really tough for Brandon. I mean, he had 2 turns in a row of like, he should have got that. You know, the elves are two-handing, they've got the +1 to wound from Celeborn. You know, Bolg probably should have been dead. Bolg just needed the 1 turn not being transfixed. He got it. And then, Sam, we get into the greatest thing, the best thing that I will ever do. Galadriel is on the walkway. She's been bringing her mirror with her elves. The mirror is in front of her. Her elves have had to peel off because there's now a wall of orcs who have like flooded through this gap. And we get into, so that's you can kind of see it there. That big bubble on the board is the rough ground that I basically wasn't able to move through. Haldir's off on that flank. I've got a couple of guys behind a wall to try and stop Haldir sneaking through. Off on the other flank, the elves are rushing down the board. They're going to do some reconnoitering in like 3 turns. That's not good. We don't really have very many orcs over there to slow them down, but we'll do our best. So I take next turn priority. There are no moves called. And Azog, Sam, runs up and picks up the Mirror of Galadriel and runs away with it. So the Mirror of Galadriel is a heavy object. At the end of every turn, a heavy object is placed down. It's not like a light object. You don't keep holding it. You put it on the ground at every turn. And it can only be moved once per turn. So I've got priority. The Mirror has not been moved yet. And Azog is burly, which means he can pick up a heavy object on his own. So Azog runs in, grabs the Mirror of Galadriel, and then drags it away, puts it down, and goes into combat to go fight some elves, which is just hilarious, picking up the Mirror of Galadriel. And Galadriel essentially can't come and get it back, because if she does, Azog's going to heroic combat and come charge Galadriel.
Is there a reason you didn't charge Galadriel?
I couldn't because of where the mirror was.
But surely if you pick it up, right, then
but
it's
a physical object. I can't like... I decided it felt unreasonable because the walkway that it's on is the width of the mirror's base.
Right, yeah, no, I mean,
like,
I see it here. I would just, you know, it's just like you could make the argument of like, I pick it up, I move, you know, or you could have gone picked it up with 2 orcs and be like, their activation ends, I put it on this side of them. They're putting it down over, you know, so.
Yeah.
There.
That felt too gamey. The idea was to have Azog. And then my second goal was to actually have Azog carried off the board to reconnoiter with the mirror. Because I thought that would be truly hilarious. So Celeborn's dead. There are elves slipping through my battle lines on the one flank. I've been taking heavy casualties. At this point, I've killed 6 elves and lost 10 orcs. But Celeborn's dead. Azog and Bolg are exactly where I need them to be. Azog's carrying the mirror. But the game is, of course, once again, running low on time. There it is. There's Azog in the mirror. I think at this point, he just didn't have enough move to get back into Galadriel, but he's between her and the mirror. Which is fantastic.
Hilarious.
So, next turn of the game, we get I take priority. No, I don't. I'm sorry. We already did that turn. Brandon gets priority, gives it to himself. We get a move off between... Azog calls a... That's right. I decide to wave the banner of Dol Guldur for a free march on Azog to enact my master evil plan here, to run with the mirror off the board. Because it's also reconnoiter and running out of time. I was really hoping for one more turn.
Mm-hmm.
So Azog grabs the mirror, runs towards the board edge, and Bolg calls a move to basically get his cavalry charge going. And Galadriel, going first, just runs away from Azog. The way this ended, Azog was about 9 inches away from from the next board edge. So one more turn, and he's got might left to call a march on his own. So Azog was one turn away from reconnoitering with the mirror. There were about 4 of Brandon's elves 2 turns away from the board edge. So it still really could have been anyone's game. It ends on a 0-all tie.
Jeez.
Right.
Could you have made it so Galadriel won that move off when you called the march with Azog?
No, Bolg couldn't. Bolg didn't want to call with me because I wanted Azog to build a march away.
Right.
So
I
was
was just thinking.
Over here, Galadriel's over here. There was no way for me to tag her, basically.
Except with Azog, surely.
I guess I could have tagged her.
I was just thinking if you're like that low on time that you might not get another turn, or
That's
if
true.
you're like, ooh, I might not be able to get models off, sending the model who like trying to like get a leader wound, might win you.
Yeah, I was looking at the clock and I really did think we had enough time for one more turn.
Sure.
And that, because then it would have been 3 bodies off the board. And anyway,
Right.
But you're right.
Yeah, it's
hunting
hard-
down
hard to
Galadriel might
know
have been a
for
better
sure.
option.
But
Super fun game. Picking up the Mirror of Galadriel with Azog may be the best thing I ever do in Middle-earth strategy.
hilarious. All right, so fifth and final round, Ben. So what are you today? You're thus far. You're 1, 2,
1 win, 1 loss, and 2 ties.
All right. It's a classic Ben Gallagher move. I don't know.
Yeah, some real classic stuff.
I don't
The
know.
only player I beat was new to the game.
Yeah. Oh well, spoilers. Jeez.
Oh yeah, my bad.
I mean, I guess you could have responded by saying I was saying thus far, but now it's definitely a spoiler. So what are we playing here? Is this domination for the
This
final?
is domination. This is domination.
Domination, a game with 24-inch up deployment zones, and a game that lasts until one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. Also a game with essential objectives, and players take it in turn placing 2 additional objectives each for a total of 5. Anywhere on the board, at least 12 inches from an existing objective and 6 from a table edge. For each objective, you score 1 victory point if you have more models within 3 of it than your opponent. If you have at least twice as many models as your opponent, instead you score 2 victory points. If you are the only player to have models within 3, you instead score 3 victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general is wounded. You score if the enemy general is removed as a casualty. Instead, you score 2 victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army was broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 3 victory points. And I just remembered what this game is, so fair. All right, Ben. Should we get into it?
Yeah, Sam, we will get right on into it. As you mentioned earlier, Sam, we're playing 5 games. There are currently 6 scenarios in the matched play guide, or not matched play guide, but for matched play. The other option would, of course, been Destroy the Supplies. I would so much rather have played against Destroy the Supplies. My opponent had Host of the Witch King for his army. He's got the Witch King, a task on Felbeast, a Taskmaster, and 2 captains, and a total of 54 bodies, a mixture of Morannons and regular orcs, which is why I would so much rather have played Destroy the Supplies.
So this is Army of Minas Morgul, then, not Host.
Army of Minas Morgul. I said Host of the Witch King. I apologize. I constantly get those 2 mixed up. Army of Minas Morgul, yeah. He's got 3 Felllight Spectres as well, which I honestly think probably won the game for him, the way that I played anyway. So we'll get right on into it. I guess I want to preface this game by saying my opponent, Evan, has got a reputation. He's a very strong, very competent player. He's got a bit of a reputation for like going full throttle all the time, and I didn't want to end my tournament on a 20-0. It's not a game that I wanted to play, and being this outnumbered against an army that wounds me on 4s with the Witch King running around neutralizing my heroes, I felt that if I fought in a big clump in the middle of the board, that it was not going to be a fun game for me, that I probably wasn't going to get very much of a game in with one or both of my heroes, that the Witch King would neutralize one turn and then be in a position the next turn to just dive right into the other one. So whether he kills Bolg on turn 1, because Bolg's out in the flank, he's easier to get to if you're on a Felbeast, and then he's got all game just to pick on Azog. And I really didn't want to play that game. That wasn't a game that I wanted to play. So I decided to take a book, a note from the Grand Old Duke of York, Sam. He had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the hill and he marched them down again. I fully intended to make Evan come get me. I think my failure in strategy really came in. I scattered my objectives a little too far apart. I should have put 2 of them in a clump and tried to have the idea was to make Evan choose between chasing Azog or chasing Bolg. Generally, in Middle-earth strategy battle games, splitting up your army is a terrible choice. Spoilers alert, it didn't necessarily work for me in this game, although the game did go exactly the way that I wanted it to, which is fine. I think if the objectives had been in different locations and I'd done a couple of different things here and there, it could have gone differently. Anyway, so my thought was to split up Azog and Bolg. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because I think you make a fair point, right? That, like, yes, the Witch King, it does a very good job of shutting down a hero and then potentially diving on one and killing it, and his orcs wounding you on, some of them, because the Gundabad, or the Morannons are going to be 5s, because they don't get Blades of the Dead. All valid points, and certainly a way to do it, and, in a game where the person you're playing is, as you nicely put it, not very good at, is going to be pedal to the metal the whole time. I would say not overly fun to play. Is that, certainly there's some level of enjoyment of making them work to chase you down and doing that. But the counter to that is your army outfights him.
Yep.
So in a big clump, you kill the orcs fairly. You need 5s on anyone unless the orc's got a spear, and then it's 4s.
Yep.
And so my thought would be is you basically dismount Bolg from the beginning and have them fight in a very compact infantry wall. And his Witch King can transfix one or the other of them. Can't deal with both of them because he doesn't have the second spellcaster. And the Witch King, he needs to transfix the orc and then die. He needs to transfix the hero and then dive it. And then I think he's still only fight 5. And so he's still then... I don't think so. I think he goes to fight 6 in the host of the Witch King because he gets +1 fight against men. I think he might. If he's 6, it changes a little bit. But if he's still 5, he needs to roll a 4 or he needs to roll a 5 or a 6 to outfight you, even when you can't strike. He's only got 3 might. He's probably what 3 in this army. Anyway, so there is it. It could potentially have gone the other way where you just survive and butcher through him, and if you basically try and play Azog and Bolg like I was playing Gothmog in the army of Gothmog, where you're like, I'll kill 1 or 2 orcs a turn, and
I think, like I said, I would so much rather have played Destroy the Supplies, just because domination when you're outnumbered almost 2-1 is a tough matchup as it is.
Yeah, basically here, what you need to do in that is you need to fucking break him as quickly as possible and watch his orcs eventually run away, because he's limited on here. But I also think that's I think you potentially could have made the other choice and it could have worked out.
Yeah, I think from where I was sitting, the risk of the other choice was that it was going to turn into a non-game for me, and I just really didn't. That was like the thing that I was trying really hard to avoid. Yeah. Like win or loss, I was trying to avoid that non-game where I'm just pulling off models and not doing stuff with my heroes.
No, absolutely, totally makes sense. He is fight 6 now. Boo.
And the movement phase is one of my favorite parts of the game. So honestly, I'm a player who can just thoroughly enjoy just moving my army all over the board. Which is what I did this game. So we're enough of the pre-game waffling. We're gonna get right on into it, Sam. You can see the deployment. I'm in a big blob of orcs. He's all the way up on the center line. I'm outside of 6. He chooses. I choose. Give him priority. Call a free heroic march with both Azog and Bolg. The thing that I didn't really consider and that definitely did enough chip damage that it was problematic for me in this game was the Deadlight Spectres. One of my orcs is dragged out of position this turn, swarmed, and killed. In fact, 2 of them are dragged out of position. One of them is swarmed by the Witch King. You can see him there. He's not on his base. He's not on his base. He is just a base. He's fighting against an orc. That orc, Sam, is a hero. He's a hero of Gundabad. Maybe if the Witch King had been on the board, he would have won that fight. My orc shielded and won the fight against the Witch King. Not 1, not 2, but 3 turns in a row. On the 3rd turn, the Witch King had said, fuck it, and spent a point of might to win that fight against that orc. Because he was just sitting there stonewalling the Witch King for 3 turns in a row.
Essentially earned you 20 points if you look at the 5 points per heroic stat.
Peeling off 8. It was glorious.
Awesome.
So I call it heroic march. I'm going to try and run through. I'm not going to run through. I'm almost going to throw out my score sheet for this because basically Azog and Bolg split up. Azog pushes up my right hand flank. Bolg peels back off the left. Evan decided to chase Bolg with the Witch King, which is what I wanted him to do. Ultimately, we talked about it afterwards, and he said he really just wasn't scared of Azog. Azog on foot, just not as scary. Bolg much more scary. If you have to pick one of them to chase down, you should pick Bolg to chase down, because on his own he could just mulch through a bunch more guys. He's more maneuverable. Blah 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 blah. Either way, I've got Bolg and like 6 orcs and a berserker running off on one flank. One of my other berserkers is just hiding in the ruin, scoring an objective, being a pain in the ass, out of line of sight, so he can't get fell expected away. And Azog is pushing off around the orcs. I got a little too invested. I think this is where my strategy fell apart. There's my hero of Gundabad. That orc's gonna get converted into a captain or something. He's the bane of the Witch King, Sam.
Or the bane of the magnet is the case.
Bane of the magnet, yes, the bane of the flying stand. I think at about this point, I should, or this is still the orc still stonewalling the Witch King for another turn. But there came a point where I was like, I'm going to make sure that Azog is always outside of 24 from the Witch King, so that he can't like stop chasing Bolg and come harass Azog. And I should have just been like, no, screw it. You're 18 inches away from Azog. If you want to turn around and come back for him and free up Bolg, that's fine. I'm going to commit Azog, but I basically waffled too long on committing Azog. We got a fun situation where I don't think he really saw me making him move like this and calling these wacky heroic marches. So he had to burn through all of his captain's might. One of his captains in the middle of the board calls a march to try and push the orcs in the middle of the board to try and like wrap around that ruin to catch me. The other captain on the other flank calls a move. Azog doesn't master a battle it, and the captain is able to run away on that flank. The Taskmaster is over there. He had to come. There's another one of my orcs that got peeled forwards and was just shielding for Gundabad. Actually, that's a spear support orc. He wasn't even shielding for Gundabad. But the Taskmaster, like the Taskmaster's fight 4, and Evan kept having to commit the Taskmaster to these fights because I kept rolling 6s with these orcs, and they kept just fighting off. But I was basically losing 1 to 2 orcs a turn to the Fell-like Spectres and the swarms that they would get pulled forwards and then just swarmed by orcs. The Witch King started throwing black darts here and there, failing those, peeling stats off the Witch King. Azog is pushing forwards. This was a great turn for me. I got like 5 kills this turn. Basically, this is Azog finally catches that captain's warband. I pushed into them. Evan basically just backs off all the spear supports and spreads out in an attempt to sort of mitigate Azog calling heroic combat. So Azog doesn't combat, but we do just all my orcs win all their fights and just mulch through that warband. And we push on. There's an objective in that Dol Guldur ruin on the right there, so we're pushing Azog's warband up into that objective. And this is the point where I maybe should have started moving Azog back towards the middle of the table, because the Witch King is now all the way over there, and I was just a little too committed, I think, to having Azog be that far away from the Witch King. I was a little bit too psyched out by the threat of the Witch King, because essentially what ended up happening is the Witch King and Bolg hit this stalemate where Bolg was in anti-flyer formation. He's in the middle of his 5 or 6 orcs next to a terrain feature, and the Witch King is sitting up in a ruin watching him, and they were just both like, ha-ha! I was contesting an objective, he was near the objective, and they were in a stalemate. And I think that is the point where my battle plan was working, and what I should have done is then, you can see where Azog is in the corner of this picture, and the orcs are fighting in this ruin. Azog should have, at this point, turned in towards the center and really pushed that middle, and potentially baited the Witch King back away from Bolg and freed Bolg back up. But as it was, I just got too psyched out, and just sort of kept Azog all the way out on the flank there. And as we move on through this game, you can see Bolg here in the foreground. You can't even tell where the Witch King is in this image. Oh, there he is. He's by the tree. At some point, he ends up in the top of that ruin, and he's just sort of watching. This is a game where the Witch King could definitely have been put on his flying stand. He was not in the thick of things. He could have been. So yeah, would have been okay. Anyway, so I spend the whole game moving. I take a total of like 8 casualties, most of them from the Fell-like Spectres. In the last couple of turns of the game, I get like 2, in the middle of the game, I get a good turn where I make like 8 kills. Towards the end of the game, we get Azog in, we get some heroic combats. Azog's pushing back towards the middle of the board. I get like another 8-10 kills. This game ends as a 12-2 loss. I got a little bit unlucky, and one of the objectives I felt should have been mine, and I probably should have been contesting another one of the other ones. Either way, an enjoyable game, certainly a different way to play it. It's not often you get a valid excuse to split up your forces, and it was a learning game. At least, I say a learning game. I learned a lot from this game, and if I played it again, I probably would have tried a similar strategy, but I think I would have positioned my objectives that I threw down a little less far-flung. I made them too spread out. Mm-hmm. They didn't need to be as spread out as they were. They could have been more clumped, and I could have still done the same thing to the same effect. yeah, and I think I don't really have a whole lot to say about this game other than what I've already said.
Yeah, I mean it's I had a similar game against the Vanquishers of the Necromancer a couple years ago, where it's to play this game you basically have to play it as it's no longer, it's just you're playing a different game. You're not playing the game of I came to like push my models around and have some combats and fight over these things. You're just like, well, I'm gonna do what I can to not, which as long as you got more enjoyment out of it than just rolling up and getting smashed. But it kind of sucks to have to play, especially for the final game, to have to sort of play that way, where you're just like, this is the way I've got to go to not probably get 20-0'd and have like kind of a shit end to an event. But so 1, 2, and 2.
Yes, one win. But if I look at least one of my draws and one of my losses and consider the game continuing,
sure.
Although having just said that, my game against Ethan, which I did win, with both Azog and Bolg dead, that game was going to go to the game was going to go to him if it kept going. So, a fun list. It's super fun to play. Thoroughly enjoy both Azog and Bolg on the table. Only having 6 might at 750 points is a bit tough.
Yeah.
And I think what was the thing that really made me struggle. But like super fun. They're both good fun heroes to play with, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Nice. Wow. Very cool. Well, that I think concludes our coverage of Defense of the North. Is there anything you would like to add, or shall we sign off this episode?
Then we're going to call that an episode. Another fantastic Defense of the North. We had 12 players, I think. A few late-minute drops where 16 people signed up. So a growing community.
Well, excellent. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I was sorry to miss it. And we will be back in 2 short weeks with another episode. Or actually, quite possibly before 2 short weeks with another episode. We shall have to see. Thank you for listening. Consider subscribing, like the video, do all of that, and check out our Patreon if you're interested in some dice. Don't let Ben's ball rolling dissuade you otherwise.
It's my Games Workshop dice that rolled terribly, Sam.
Okay.
I got out my Baron of Dice whenever. They should be my reinforcement dice. Just roll them for reconnoiter and I'll show up.
There you go. Well, thank you again for listening, and we will be back. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no micro bubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.